Welcome back, everyone. My name is Eugene Hough with the Legacy Marker Program, a program that's dedicated to working with communities to preserve, protect, and in turn share their unique historical narratives. One of the key supporting factors of the Legacy Marker Program is working with entities promoting education. Today, I'm very grateful to have a gentleman, Mr. Peter Crooke, who is a faculty member at Harriton High School, and had the opportunity this summer and actually over this last year to get to know Peter and talk about education and students. And the big challenge for me is how to get into a school situation and meet professionals because everyone is very busy. Peter agreed to come today, which we're very grateful for, and we're going to talk about community-based learning. So with moving on, Peter, thanks for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome, Eugene. Thanks for having me.
If you could share with the audience here a little bit about your background.
Sure. Right now, I coordinate the senior project at Harriton High School, as you know. We worked pretty closely on a really good project this past spring. I have also had experience with work programs, internship programs, all at Harriton High School, community service, service learning, programs like that. So I've worked a great deal with students who take their learning out into the community, whether it's through an internship or a volunteer situation, or in the case of the senior project, it's kind of half academic and half community involvement. So that's really my background.
What is the relationship with the learning environment at schools? You have means-based testing, you have situations where there's core requirements and curriculums. Where do you see students having flexibility, or how are they dealing with that structuring, but also allowing for outside that spectrum for learning experiences?
I think it takes a special school district, and I put in a plug for Lower Merion School District. They make time for it. They make time for it. My schedule is half schedule is teaching English, and the other half is actually working in the community program. And that's an investment. The neighborhood makes an investment in this. Because of exactly what you say, there are a lot of really high pressure, high stakes tests that entities outside of the district require. The state requires the Keystone exams on the high school level. And the students really can be stressed out about that. And then to the SATs and the exams to get into the competitive colleges and so forth. But we're aware that that's not the only component of education. We're aware that there is a broader sense of education. We want the students to be at the center of education. So what does that mean? It certainly means a world-class education in the classroom, but it also means being creative, getting out of the classroom. It means connecting with the community. We've worked with community members in any number of businesses and any number of situations. We have lots of contacts in our neighborhood, right in our school. So it's a great opportunity, but the school district has to make time for it. It really, really does. So, you know, half of my schedule is the school district making time to produce the program.
I think for myself, the opportunity to come to your school, and by the way, Harriton High School, it's spectacular. It's modern, a lot of glass hallways. It was immaculate, and a lot of students.
Yes.
It's amazing. And for myself, going to a very small school, and hallways were much narrower. I guess they're giving a lot of thought to work and school environments in terms of lighting and classroom design to, I guess, provide a stimulating environment. Is that the case in terms of how rooms are set up and the process provided for these students while they're at school?
Yes, the design of the school, and that's continuing to evolve, but it's a relatively new building, 6 or 7 years old. And when it was built, it was designed for collaborative work. It was designed so that students could be in any part of the building, would not have to walk more than 20 feet to get to a place to work. as you noticed in the hallway, and it wasn't just decoration, it wasn't decoration at all. Every nook and cranny has a table, a comfortable seating, collaborative seating. You'll see that all over the building. We've had a couple of meetings in some of those nooks with students and with you and some other teachers. The library is set up that way. The technology is set up that way. There is the ability for students to be in contact with one another in a particular project. They could be sitting around the table all on the same Google Doc. We have screens that they could plug and have a master computer showing whatever it is the entire group needs to show. So yeah, there's a lot of thought and investment that has gone into that to that program. Just to take a look at our strategic plan, you can see why. You know, we really want collaboration. We want students to really grow as people as well as students.
I think one of the things I want to share with the audience, and Peter is going to highlight this, I hope, for me, is that I've been involved with collecting books for years. I love books. So a classic example, bookshelves here, and people say everything's digitized today and whatnot, and that's fine, but books are books, and I love history, and particularly the main line, the Philadelphia Regional History component. And at Lower Merion Baptist Church, where I have my archives, some of the members of the church community are graduates from Harriton High School. And we were sitting around having coffee, and the conversation was, and sharing with them, I said my frustration of how Harriton High School is right down the road. How can we develop some sort of a relationship with that school where we could provide an opportunity for students to come out and participate not only in preservation activities, but also documentation, research, bringing forward a community narrative. And so through two of the members, they contacted, I believe, one of the representatives at Harriton to see if an opportunity would be available for me to come in and speak with someone. And that opportunity did unfold. And so that was about a year ago almost, and where I had a chance, I think initially to email Mr. Crooke, Peter, and then the opportunity to meet with him. Can you tell a little bit about sharing with the audience what transpired through our various meetings, your role with Senior Project, and also Day of Service in the capacity where we were trying to devise a way where we might start a pilot program?
Right. It was a phone call,
Okay.
voicemail, and I never turned down a voicemail in my position. There's always reason to be in contact with the community, with a community member, and I could hear the excitement in your voice on the voicemail. We touched base, and what I normally do in a situation like that is to make a quick assessment as to, okay, how can the students benefit from this? So from the voicemail and then the return call, we had a brief conversation. I really thought it would be great to sit down and have a conversation. That conversation revolved around the current legacy marker effort at Lower Merion Baptist Church and Senior Projects. So where do we connect? So we had a conversation about that. What happened up here, the wheels began to turn. I began to think of students who might benefit from the program. I thought of, I think about 4 or 5 students, if you recall, and we ended up with going with 2 of them. But students from, history buffs, students who had specific talents, but did not have anywhere to apply that trade. And what you did, as you recall, was to say, okay, so we can do this, we can bring in mentors. As soon as I heard the word mentor, that was important to me. Because I had a student who was very, very good at computer and technology. He may have been challenged in other arewas, a little shy. So he wasn't going out knocking on doors, but that's where we step in. I had another student who was just the opposite, who was very, very gregarious and very, very outgoing, and had some interests that we thought we could connect to the program. And her interest actually was forensics, forensic psychology.
That's correct.
And when we began to talk, when you began to talk, well, what we're doing is we're not only repairing and restoring these markers in the cemetery at the Baptist Church, but we also want to catalog who this is. We want to build a local history. We want students to be involved in understanding local history. So we had someone who was interested in forensic, interested in technology, and there was a match for me. Additionally, what will always be important for me is the component of the student-driven learning. Each student would have an essential question that would drive his or her entire project. That's how the senior project is oriented. So one student did have an essential question on technology, and another student had an essential question on forensic psychology. In this one project, we were able to satisfy both essential questions. The experience then for the students becomes very authentic because it's driven by their desire to learn a specific thing, and it's done in a real world, and yet it has structure. It has their responsibilities that the student has to live up to on our end in terms of reporting back to a faculty advisor, on your end in terms of being there, being on time, and actually doing the work. And then when the community service day came along, the young lady who was involved who was very interested in forensic psychology, also turned out to be a very strong leader, and led one of the groups in the day of service, because you had also made contact with another faculty member who was creating the day of service, and arranged for a day-long, 2 or 3 hour service group to come over, and the young lady led that group. So those are the kinds of things that you hope happen, but you never guaranteed it happens. But it happened, and I was thrilled. The young lady was thrilled, and I believe you were thrilled as well. So there was a great connection on the day of service as well.
I think the interesting aspect was that each time we spoke, I said, let me have a chance to speak to an art teacher, let me have a chance to speak to a music teacher. And initial conversations were orchestrated where we can take those different disciplines and bring them into the fold as part of that learning experience in the field. The cemeteries are an open-air classroom. So a specific date means something, but who was the president in 1826? What famous artisan was alive during those times? What were the world issues going on at that time? And the feeling is that what we're hoping to do, because in doing, the Legacy Marker Project has done projects in various states, and I'm a Radnor resident, so a lot of my focus has been in the community around here, and that's why I'm so grateful for the pilot project that we orchestrated. But the challenge for me is, how can we share what we have here in structuring a program, building upon what we've done, so kids that I work with down in South Carolina who might need a leg up or a mentoring component, maybe from a Radnor or a Harriton high school student, Lower Merion high school student, through social technology, we can do that. The kids, the students are using these. We're drawn into that fold a lot. But if we could do it in an exciting manner where these students are themselves becoming mentors to other students or to mentees, and the young lady that was helping with the filming last month's interview is from India, and I was talking to her about my experience in India, and I said I spoke to some students there that wanted to learn about America more, and they didn't feel like they were getting the type of information they would like. That's why I'm hoping that in building upon these projects, as you've outlined here in terms of communities, culture, world issues, the students can be part of that as what I would title almost like an electronic pen pal program. The capacity of your school being so close was also a major asset. And so in having our meetings, what sort of feedback did you get from any of your colleagues regarding the project at this stage? Because it is something, I gather it's different what we did this year than some of the projects.
Yes, what we did this year was very exciting and required the structure of both the senior project and the Legacy Marker program. But your first question, I am hearing two questions there, was, you know, how do we work into schools and so forth. At Harriton and at Lower Merion High School, for that matter, there's a landing spot, and senior project is a landing spot. We've allotted space, we've allotted time to be in contact with community members, so that if, I don't know how you got to my voicemail box, but I would venture to guess that when you called the school, you probably explained a little bit about Legacy Marker program. They said, oh, well, that's Peter Crooke, we'll put you on to his voicemail. That's normally the landing spot for these kinds of programs. The feedback for the senior project in general, I didn't solicit any feedback on any specific project, but the feedback for senior project in general, we've gathered this data over the last 2 years. I'm going to go by memory here. I don't have the data in front of me, but I believe it's 85% of the faculty members feel that senior project is very valuable. Student feedback, I think the numbers are about the same, although there's a split there as well, because we asked the questions of students. Should we keep it the same, or should we punch it up? Should we change it in any way? And it's about split there. Everyone who thinks it's a great opportunity, they do want to keep it going on. The interesting thing is that many of the students, and this is not true of the faculty members because they're good with the senior project from the beginning to end, many of the students in their feedback to our data gathering said that if you had asked me this question at the beginning in January, I would have said, I don't think it's that great. Now that you're asking me when it's finished, I think it was one of the greatest opportunities that I could have had.
I think that your testament there is very valuable. I always share when my ear picks up when somebody's talking about education, and I was at Whole Foods talking to some family members, and we were discussing the school board and how each year, I guess it's every year, there are school board members that are part of the township curriculum that work with curriculum design and school policy. I would hope that those entities out there, and I don't like to think of them in ivory towers, but I think what we're accomplishing or have accomplished here, there's a good story, but we need people to say if they're supportive of that, and that's why through Studio 21, through like last month's highlighting of the drone video of the students working, and we had other types of photography and guest speakers coming in, very, very successful. But if we're going to make this project work, we need feedback from you, the audience out there. A lot of people are frustrated sometimes with direction of education because it's very, very busy and fast-paced. But there's some really good success stories out there, and that's what we're working on. Your involvement also through the programs, you're dealing with science curriculum, art curriculum. Those sorts of curriculums do interface or provide an outreach piece for students who have an interest in that particular area. If they're a major in science, what sort of experiences do students get? That possibly might be through the senior project where they go out and work for a pharmaceutical company for the month.
Yeah, the senior project is not limited in terms of topic, and that's why the student creates it. And we have a number of outstanding programs at Harriton that I just call them world class. I'm just bragging, I guess, but our Science Olympiad team, for example, often finishes in the top 5 of the national title, and has over the last couple of years won a couple of state titles, and I'm going to say over the last couple of decades. Yeah, we've had students work directly in firms, in science firms. We've had students work in art galleries. We've had students also work with one-on-one with engineers, maybe not connected specifically to the firm, but we've had a lot of our engineering program over at Harriton has contacts with local engineers who volunteer their time for their work. Those become mentors for senior project as well. They can become mentors for senior projects as well. There are any number of places. Students, we have a sports and society, sports and, it's in the business department, a sports course or a series of courses, and they make contacts with the Phillies and the Eagles and things of that nature. So we're not limited at all. The really creative part comes when we look at, we have an opportunity to work one-on-one with something that's very creative. It's not necessarily in a company, which is a traditional 3 or 4 week internship. But when we have something creative, that's why you and I spent a lot of time together last spring, because we were creating a project that didn't have an office building. And that's an important component of the senior project, that the students can create, and we can help the students create a very unique project. And that's an important, very, very important component to the senior project.
I think that one of the major successes that you and I agreed on was bringing in members of the community to talk with the students about what they did, even though it may not have been their particular area of interest. We had somebody come in from Citizens Bank and talk to students about student loans and opportunities of opening an account. We were trying to get somebody to come in from Mainline Health, and possibly we'll do this next year, because I feel that when we look at individuals in the cemeteries, whether it's from colonial times to present, public health issues affected these people. And for that young man or woman, student, who maybe is interested in the sciences, maybe to be a doctor or nurse, having that individual come in and talk about real life stories and why this is needed, that may be the change agent that makes that student say, hey, I want to go into that profession. Giving them a chance to broaden their horizons in their experience at school, because when you go on to college, it's another step in trying to figure out what you want to do. So I don't think there's anything wrong with starting them sooner than later.
No.
So
I have to add there, one of the things that makes the project that you and I did with Senior Project and the Legacy Marker Program attractive is that it's not limited. It doesn't limit. In fact, we started off with 5 names, and just it happened to whittle down because of preferences, but there were very varied interests. And that's an important component for, I think, a very rich project. You could have a science and an art person working side by side, and it's relevant. And I love projects like that. And that's one of the things that was attractive to this project last year.
And basically, with our limited time, I just want to highlight something that was important, is that the amount of time dedicated to this 2 students, and even deciding and working with the possibilities of 5 students, Mr. Crooke, and the fact that they take this very seriously as I do. And we well know once you have that opportunity one-on-one with that student, there's a whole other series of issues that come forward about that individual and what they're about. And so you have to go on the fly because they have questions and interests. And during that time, if we can get members of the community who are professionals to come in and answer those questions for those students, that's going to make this program work. Peter, I'm hoping we can continue this for the new year, and we'll get back to everyone. I want to thank Studio 21 for providing this coverage. But again, to the audience here, it's extremely important that we get feedback as to what we're doing with these programs, and we're welcome to respond accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eugene.